Boston Celtics fans, the wait is finally over. It is officially the week of the NBA Finals. Of course, the Dallas Mavericks will be traveling to Boston this week to take on the Celtics in Game 1. And as you guys can see, well, the fans over there in Vegas obviously think the Celtics do have the opportunity to take Game 1 against the Mavericks. So let's go ahead and talk about that on today's show. The storylines heading into Game 1. Of course, there are familiar foes coming back to either arena. There's injury news as well as what happened in the regular season with the Boston Celtics and Dallas Mavericks. But first things first, the reason why we have Celtics Today by Chat Sports is that I talk, then you guys talk. Go on ahead and comment down below. How confident are you playing the Dallas Mavericks? I asked everybody in the Chat Sports office who they've got winning the NBA Finals, and let me tell you, they are not on the Boston Celtics side, so I want to hear from some Celtics fans. Scale it 1 to 10, your confidence level in the Boston Celtics taking on the Dallas Mavericks. All right, like I said, we're going to be getting into a little bit of storylines here heading up into Game 1. I'm going to tell you the latest on Kristaps Porzingis and also on the Dallas Mavericks injury front because we do know Derek Lively hit his head pretty hard going up against the Timberwolves, and we'll see how he's been playing, how he's been practicing leading up to the championship. So that is our first storyline I do want to go on ahead and get into is the injury news. I know you guys, along with myself, are just so concerned with Kristaps Porzingis. Is he playing? Is he not playing? How is he rehabbing? Is he on track to playing? Well, Joe Mazzulla actually should give a pretty promising update ahead of Game 1, not to mention practice looked pretty good for KP heading into Game 1. But first things first, I got to talk about the Mavericks injury report because when I saw Derek Lively smack his head against the Timberwolves, I'm like, this man's concussed. This man has a whiplash, has a sprained neck, something. It did not look good when he went down. But I talked to Jeffrey Cooperstein, who was with our Dallas Mavericks channel here at Chat Sports, and I also found a couple of reports on how Derek Lively is doing well after he was injured against the Timberwolves. Here's what Lively had to say about his injury update. He said, I'm great. Everyone's going to ask, and everyone's been asking for the past couple of days. I'm all right. You know, if I'm going to get hit in the head another 3-4 times, I'm still going to get back up and act like it didn't happen. So it does look like that Derek Lively has the same mindset as multiple Boston Celtics players of, hey, look, man, this is the finals. I'm looking to play. I'm looking to be okay. But I do know the NBA and the NFL and multiple major league sports don't really mess around with head injuries anymore. So it does look like Derek Lively is good to go. He's not on the injury report anymore. So now let's get to the real crazy news here about the injury update with Kristaps Porzingis. As we know, KP is the only player on the Celtics injury report. He's been the only player on the Celtics injury report despite some personal issues with Xavier Tillman. We did have Luke Cornett on there for a while, but he's now back and ready to go. So Joe Mazzulla talked about how KP can absolutely be the difference maker here for the Boston Celtics. Mazzulla said yesterday in media availability for the Boston Celtics, when KP's at his best, he's been tremendous for us, and we expect that from him, and we know he'll give that to us. We know KP wants to play. We know that he has been trying extremely hard to get back to be ready for the NBA Finals, but the most recent practice update that we do have is that he went through 5-on-5 drills, and he had a very extensive three-point shooting drill as well. This has been the most extensive workout that Kristaps Porzingis has gone through since he did first injure his calf in round 1 of the NBA playoffs. Here's the quote that I love the most. Joe Mazzulla said he did everything that the team did. There were no restrictions. There were no limitations. KP played with the Boston Celtics over the weekend during practice, and that's enough for me. I love that report. It gives me a little sense that, hey, KP is on the right track to playing here in Game 1, but of course, nothing is official just yet. I want to ask you this question. Do you want KP to play in Game 1 versus the Mavericks? Go ahead and spam your KPs down below. I want to see Celtic Nation stand up, let Kristaps Porzingis know that they're behind him. They want him to recover as soon as possible. And with that latest report, I'm going to be honest, that has been the most optimistic I have felt since he originally did get injured. So spam KP in the comment section below. Why don't I go on ahead, take a quick break here and tell you guys about our sponsor here on Celtics Today by Chat Sports. And you guys already know I'm talking about Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in America. And with Prize Picks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. Here's how you play. You make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. That's no joke. And you just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections, and you're locked in. That's it. You're good. And plus, the finals means more on Prize Picks, and so do the star players. You get boosted payouts on select basketball stars that you won't find anywhere else. And if you want an example of what a star player looks like, well, just take Jason Tatum, for example. Not only are they making him a star player, which will give you more on your payout if this lineup is correct, but they're also giving you the most free entry you can find anywhere. If Tatum makes one basket, you win. Come on, man. It's Jason Tatum. I got Doncic having less than 31.5 points. I don't think game one's going to be his game coming in TD Garden. I know Boston fans are really intense, especially when it comes to playoff time. So I got Luka not having 32 points. But I do have Kristaps Porzingis having at least made 2.5 3-pointers. And obviously, this is going to be a really big ask of KP since he was injured, so that's why it's a demon pick, which means it's going to be a harder pick for this player to reach that projected stat line, but it's going to pay you a lot more if he does do it, and I've got all the faith in Kristaps Porzingis if he is playing. Here is my Prize Picks lineup. Feel free to copy that, or you guys can go ahead and make your own at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use that promo code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Pick more. Pick less, I promise. It is that easy to watch yourself win some real money in real time. Now, I know I'm not going to harp a lot here on the regular season matchup because, of course, you got the NBA trade deadline. You've got a lot of movement in the regular season, but I do think it's worth mentioning at least once what the Celtics did against the Mavericks this past regular season. All right, first things first, they swept them. They played them twice, and they swept them. And by the looks of game one, it was a dominant win. And then game two, vice versa, they only won by 9 in game one. January 22nd, that was ahead of the NBA trade deadline. After the NBA trade deadline, of course, they still beat them. And that's 2 wins in my books going up against the Western Conference team in the Dallas Mavericks here. But there's a reason why the Celtics were so dominant against the Boston Celtics here is because the duo that's been popping off in the postseason, the Jays. Here's what they did against the Dallas Mavericks in the regular season. Obviously, this was incredible performances from both Tatum and Jaylen Brown to be averaging 30 points a game. That's a big ask to do in a 7-game series, but it may be necessary just for a little bit longer to play ball like that. Not to mention almost a double-double here for Jason Tatum. About the same in assists, but their field goal percentage was a lot better from Tatum than it was Jaylen Brown, but I do think that's when Tatum was kind of playing more of an offensive role in terms of scoring, and now he's going to shift into more of a facilitator when it comes to the offense. Thank you for Smitty for helping me with that work. And of course, the 3-point percentage there was phenomenal from both Tatum and Brown. But of course, we have another duo that we have to look at. We have to look at Luka and Kyrie. Here's what they did against the Boston Celtics. And let me tell you, when I was making this and I looked at Luka's stat line, holy shit. I mean, this guy is legit. If you guys didn't know already, averaging a triple-double against the Boston Celtics, 35, 15, and 12. He will continue to be dominant. That is no question. Kyrie is kind of giving me the same production level from the number 2 like Jaylen Brown is, but not as efficient here. Only 21 points per game against the Celtics, 5 boards, 2.5 assists. His 3-point percentage obviously a lot better than Luka's was against the Boston Celtics, but I have seen Kyrie waver a little bit from downtown going up against the Timberwolves, which I am intrigued to see how he'll fare against the Celtics. We do know that Luka is legit. There is no stopping that. He's been averaging a triple-double, almost a triple-double in the postseason. He obviously does so much more than just score the basketball. He cleans the glass. He facilitates. Luka is the real deal. And when you pair him with an elite playmaker like Kyrie Irving, it's going to be a bloodbath in this series heading into the finals. So my question here is, I'm going to focus on Luka, right? Can the Celtics stop Luka in a 7-game series? That's the only thing that makes me a little bit nervous here is that it's not just one game. Oh, okay, then you go back and you play the Cavs. Then you go back and you play the Thunder. This is now the only opponent you will face. Do you have enough to stop Luka? Comment why or why not. And then, of course, we're going to talk about familiar foes. That's the last storyline that I'm looking at heading into the NBA Finals, because it's not just Kyrie's return to Boston. It's Porzingis' return to Dallas. They pretty much just switched teams. And when I'm thinking of Kyrie Irving coming back to TD Garden, it puts a pit in my stomach for one of two reasons. One, he dominates in TD Garden. Two, because the TD Garden and the Boston Celtics need to get revenge for what this man did to their home court. It's giving Baker Mayfield planted a flag in the middle of the field. This man stopped, squished his foot, and wiped off on Lucky's face. Disrespectful, unnecessary, and the only thing that Boston fans need to remember is this picture right here. But ESPN's Kendrick Perkins, who I very rarely agree with, had a pretty good point here, but I don't know if I necessarily get what he's saying in depth. He said, okay, you can boo him when he comes to TD Garden, do whatever you want, but please, I'm warning you guys, do not take it over. Leave him alone. You know that they're going to boo him, but the excessive thing, like the things the fans gotta get escorted out of the arena. He's pretty much saying like, hey, look, you want to show Kyrie pretty much the same kind of energy you would show any other opponent coming in TD Garden. But Perkins is almost giving a warning to Boston Celtics fans saying, hey, kind of lay low, because if you start getting him going, he is one of those players that when you boo him, he starts to pop off. I don't give a shit. Keep booing him. Keep throwing that stuff. Keep giving it to him, because you cannot make it any easier by keeping the arena quiet. So yeah, I see what Perkins is saying, because we have seen that happen before, but it's also like, you're not going to stop going against him just because you're afraid he might drop 30. Kyrie will be playing with a vengeance, especially in TD Garden. We know that for a fact. But the way that Tatum and Brown are meshing right now is also very intimidating for the Dallas Mavericks to take on when they come to the home court of the Boston Celtics. Plus, on the other hand, you're going to have a vengeance a little bit, I guess if you want to call it, with Porzingis playing his former team, the Dallas Mavericks. And the last thing we knew about KP and Luka was that they kind of had beef, if you will. But Porzingis did address this about playing the Dallas Mavericks in his former team, and he said, look, it's a big mix of things. Maturity for sure. Again, I'm talking about what I could have done better. Then I wasn't that much into analytics and numbers. Like if somebody, I think at that stage of my career, had presented to me in the right way and said, this is what we need to do, this is what we need from you, you're going to be way more effective doing this. Like, kind of explain it to me better. I think that would have made a difference a little bit. I think Luka and I both tried to make it work, It's just, I think communication, maturity on both of our parts should have been better. KP sounds like he has no regrets with Dallas. He's no beef with Luka. He's only 28 years old, and I just don't think he felt like his role was explained thoroughly to him to pair up with a phenomenal ball player like Luka Doncic. However, Chandler Parsons does think that the Dallas Mavericks and American Airlines Center is going to give KP shit when he also comes into their arena. They do not like Porzingis in Dallas, is what Parsons had to say. Luka did not like playing with him. There is actual beef there. And he went on to say, I guarantee Porzingis gets booed every time he touches the ball. And I talked to Jeffrey Cooperstein, and he said, yeah, I agree with this, but kind of in the same sense that I don't think this beef is as dramatic as people are making it out to be. However, when it comes to NBA playoffs, there's a different level of tension. You can take any rivalry and you put it in a playoff scenario, a championship scenario, that rivalry goes from here to here. So I do expect the Mavericks fans to be ugly to KP. And I expect Boston fans to be ugly to Kyrie in a respectful way, obviously. But I do think that this is going to be a very heightened type of environment in both American Airlines and in TD Garden because you've got two former players playing in those stadiums. Are you worried about Kyrie Irving at TD Garden in the finals? You saw this man disrespect the logo on the floor, a sacred logo on the floor. Are you worried that he could possibly dominate at least one game in TD Garden? Or are you maybe even a little bit worried that he could do something disrespectful again in TD Garden? Let me know down below. Type Y for yes, type in for no. And as always, we will be live for Game 1 on Thursday. I do not want you guys to miss it. This is going to be the place to be, the second best place to be behind TD Garden on Thursday. Go on ahead and hit that sub button for me. That way you guys can join us live on Thursday.